Hello, hello. Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay. All righty. Good morning. So as he said, my name is Katelyn Houser. I've been a member here since I was about 7 or 8 years old. And I, about 3.5 months ago, moved to the Dominican Republic. So I live in the province of San Juan, and I live in the capital city of that province called San Juan de la Maguana. So it's a very rural area. So it's about an hour or so away from the Haitian border. And I am working for a Christian missions organization called Solid Rock International. It's a small organization, but we actually they host a lot of teams each year. So basically, what we do is we host short-term mission teams that are medical, surgical, general medicine, surgical, construction, or vacation Bible school. And so I currently am in the role of the guest house host, but I did not start there. So I'm going to just talk about a little bit about myself before we get into Solid Rock, so that you kind of know my background. I know a lot of you guys, and a lot of you have watched me grow up here. But I knew in high school, I remember my senior year of high school, my Spanish teacher asked me what my plans were after high school. And I told her, I have no idea. I would love to go into ministry, but I also want to use my Spanish in ministry, so I have no idea what that's going to look like or where the Lord is leading me in that respect. But I felt the calling on my heart to go into ministry when I was in high school. So I've been involved in lots of different service projects and things like that locally throughout my life. I have gone a lot to Camp Lynn Haven for the past 14 summers. I've been a part of Camp Lynn Haven's Teen Servant Event Week, so that was since I was in 8th grade, and now I'm 27 years old, so I've been doing that every year, and I currently am the leader of the backpack project that we have at Camp Lynn Haven. So you might have seen some emails go out hey, we need donations of school supplies and things like that. So I'm the mastermind behind that. Me and Tirza are. So that has been something that I've been involved in, and I just have a heart for serving, and I really love to just serve others and love on others as best as I can. And so in 2020, I took my very first mission trip abroad to the Dominican Republic with Solid Rock International, and I actually went on a medical mission trip, and I have no medical background. I got my CNA in high school and never used it, so no medical background for me. And I went to kind of see if I wanted to be a medical interpreter. And on day one, I realized that I did not want to be a medical interpreter, especially not in rural Dominican Republic, because where we were working were in the countrysides with people who had very limited access to education and resources and things like that. So they would come in, and you would say, hey, what brings you here today? What do you need checked out? And they would be like, well, I used to be able to read my Bible. Now I can't. And so you just have to figure out, okay, is it a vision thing? What's going on? And it's just, they didn't have enough knowledge to say, okay, my vision's getting worse. I don't know what's going. They didn't have that knowledge to kind of help us help them. And so I've realized very quickly I did not want to be a medical interpreter, and at least not there. So I ended up going out with our pastor that works for Solid Rock, who, when we set up these day clinics for general medicine in these very rural communities, he goes out from house to house and he preaches the gospel. And then he invites the families to come to the day clinic just to get a general well check. If they have, we see a lot of hypertension and things like that, lots of diabetes. So if they need any medical care in those general kinds of things, we can help them. If not, we can refer them to different specialists that are at little to no cost. We actually now have our own clinic. Well, we've had our own clinic, but we have a brand new clinic that just opened up, which is pretty cool. And actually, one thing that has been, I guess, probably the biggest culture shock is seeing that when you have an emergency situation or you have a scheduled surgery for whatever, you have to bring your own blood. So, like, if I need surgery, I'm going to have to go to all of you and say, okay, what type of blood do you have? What type of blood do you have? Okay, if you have the same type of blood as me, then you have to go get checked out and get blood samples to see if that blood's going to be good for me. And then I have to have you guys come on the day that I have surgery and give blood so that I have blood after my surgery. And so, as you can imagine, in emergency situations, that doesn't really work well, because if it's not planned, you don't have the time to recruit people. And so there's a lot of car accidents and things like that. There's a lot of people who drive on motos, so they'll like lose a leg or an arm very easily in an accident. And where I live is about 3.5 hours from the Capitol. The Capitol is the closest place that has emergency medical care. So these people were having to, in emergency situations, were having to load up in their car. An ambulance in that area is not really a thing. Load up in their car and drive as fast as they possibly can to the Capitol. And most of the time, people died on the way to the Capitol. So Solid Rock had been fundraising and planning and all this stuff for this new clinic to be in our community, where we actually have a blood bank, which is not heard of really in hospitals or clinics in the Dominican Republic. So we now have a blood bank. And so I actually just went a few weeks ago to give blood, and they do whole blood. So I'm telling you, that needle was not a needle, it was a straw. It was huge, and I was not expecting it. But it's been such a blessing for the people in that community to be able to have access to healthcare, and great healthcare at that. A lot more resources have gone into this because it's an American clinic who have donated lots of supplies that may be slightly outdated to us, but are way more advanced than what they're used to seeing in the Dominican Republic. So I think that is really cool. So that's a little bit about Solid Rock. I talked to you about the clinic. I talked to you about our short-term mission teams. So Solid Rock's mission statement is to transform the mind, body, and soul of the community of San Juan and throughout the Dominican Republic. So the first one is the mind, and the way we transform the mind is through education. And one thing that I've really learned from working in the Dominican Republic is a lot of times our American mentality is like, oh, like, let's just give them money. Let's give them this. Let's give them that. And while that's great, and I know it's like great intentions, I have started to work with impoverished families. And I took them some of my leftovers the other day, and it was rice and beans, and they ate them cold. They didn't have a way to heat them up, and they were so thankful, and they were like, oh my gosh, this is so good. And I don't know about you, but I don't think that I want to eat rice and beans cold. But they did. And so the pastor had come with me to their house because we met them on a home visit at one of our day clinics. And I was like, you know, it almost just disgusts me sometimes how wasteful Americans are. Like, they took us to the little creek that they walked 10 minutes to take a bath, and they also wash their dishes in that same water that they take a bath in. And there's this one spring of drinkable water that they get their drinking water in. So they have no indoor plumbing or anything like that in this particular community. And I was just like, you know, Pastor, like, it almost makes me sick how wasteful we are sometimes as Americans, and how I get on Instagram and you see people like just buying these like little things for, you know, a few days or whatever, or brand new Christmas decorations every single year and like not reusing. And he was like, yeah, I know. And I was like, well, what's the answer? How do we combat this? And he was like, you know, you can give them $100, and that'll last them a few weeks, maybe a month to feed them. But after that $100 ends and that resource is not coming in, they have nothing. They're back to square one. So the best way that we can ensure that they're coming out of poverty is to give them the resources to be able to do it themselves, give them the education and the knowledge. So the pastor also works with another organization who actually raises goats. So the organization keeps male goats, and they'll get like a female goat, they'll impregnate the female goat and give it to a family in need. And that organization makes them, like, after the female goat has her baby, give the baby back to the organization, and then whatever other babies she has is theirs. They can use it for meat, they can use it to sell, whatever. And so when you give them the resources to be able to sustain it themselves, that's really what gets people out of poverty. It's not handouts of clothes or handouts of food or handouts of money. Even though those are all good things with good intentions, they don't last long, and it keeps them in the same cycle. Whereas knowledge gets them out of that cycle. So Solid Rock has actually partnered with 5 different schools across the country who are first and foremost Christian schools. So these children are getting Christ-centered education, also quality education. Private schools do not close very often. Public schools, teachers are on strike all the time, which I'm very confused about, because the teaching profession is one of the highest paid professions in the country, yet they're always on strike because they want to get paid more. So I'm not really sure where the inconsistency lies there. I'm not really sure why they go on strike. But when they do go on strike, kids can be out of school for 2 to 3 weeks at a time. So the education is not consistent. And so that's very, very difficult to get out of poverty when you don't have that consistent resource. So that's a little bit about how we transform the mind. We also transform the body through healthcare, little to no cost healthcare, lots of resources. We have a child nutrition program because of the high rates of malnourished children. So that program educates the parents. There's a lot of accountability for the families who are in that program. We don't charge them per se, but they do have to come and meet certain requirements, and they have to show up and invest in their child's nutrition. So that's the child nutrition program really transforms both the mind and the body. And of course, our number one goal is to transform the soul. So through these ministries, we're able to talk about Jesus and spread the gospel in those different situations. So within everything, our pastor is there, and he's preaching the gospel and just talking to people and forming relationships and everything. By the way, our pastor is Dominican, so he speaks both Spanish and Haitian Creole, which has been super cool to start. I've been starting to learn Haitian Creole, and that's been cool to just hear the gospel preached in Spanish and in Creole and being able to understand bits and pieces, so that's been really cool too. But that's just a little bit about Solid Rock International as a whole. And so I'm going to let you guys know what I've been doing down there. So I went down there about three and a half months ago in a temporary position. So I was only supposed to be there for about 6 months. They had a missionary family transition back to the States. Their kids are getting older. They want them to go to high school and stuff in the States. So they transitioned back to the States, and they just needed a few more hands on deck. So they asked me to come for 6 months, and I was like, absolutely. So I went, and about a month into me being there, the previous guest house host decided he wanted to explore other things. So he decided to leave, and he had been there for about 5 years, but he's younger, so he's like, I don't know, maybe 24. So he wanted to kind of explore other options, see what else was out there, kind of thing. And so they asked me if I would be willing to take over the guest house until they could fill the position. And so I was like, yeah, sure, that's fine. So I've worked at Camp Lynn Haven in the kitchen enough to know a few things around there. So I actually committed to continuing to be the guest house host for a year and a half, about, I don't know, maybe a month or so ago. So that's been a pretty big transition, but it's been really cool because the mission teams, the short-term mission teams that we host, are not all necessarily Christian. We do have a lot of colleges that have like nursing students and stuff come down, and they use this as part of their clinical hours. So I really see my position, even though I'm not able to go out with the teams as much as before I took over the guest house. I see my position as witnessing to Americans who can then go back, take what they're experiencing in the Dominican back to their communities. Last week, or not last week, but the week before last, we actually had a team from Southern Utah University, so the majority of those students were Mormon. So I got to sit down and say, I say I got to. I kind of walked into a conversation I didn't really mean to, but I think it was definitely the Lord kind of leading me there, because we started talking about translations of the Bible, and then that turned into like what they believed, and I had never really heard what Mormons believed. And so they walked me through the whole thing, and my mind was just like, holy cow. And so I got to just sit there and kind of witness to him as best as I could and say, like the things that you're kind of, the verses that you're saying you're basing these beliefs off of are really taken out of context when you look at them. But we had a very good conversation. It was not like neither of us were attacking each other. And so I really think that my position in the guest house has kind of turned into witnessing to Americans. Even though I originally went down there to serve Dominicans, and I do, I still have a really cool opportunity to pour into Americans to come back and also change our society and kind of have like a little revolution for Jesus in our society. So that's been really cool. In the guest house position, I oversee everything in the guest house. I plan meals. I go grocery shopping. I am in charge of all the guest house finances. I make sure we have what we need. And when our translators go out on site visits before our general medicine teams come down, I make sure that they have the money they need to go out and do these site visits and keep the trucks filled up with gas and everything. So I also have started driving there since I think the last time that I was here, which was a little scary, but we're getting used to it now. I drive a Toyota Tacoma, so it's very interesting. I do all of the desserts, as you can see in this picture. I'm making cookies. I'm actually making Camp Lynn Haven recipe cookies, so that's a new thing that we're doing. And I also help prep a lot of the food, but we have some Dominican women who have worked with Solid Rock for about 30 years who do 90% of the cooking, which is great because I'm not the best cook, but they are phenomenal cooks. So I get to work closely with 3 ladies. Their names are Gregoria, Margot, and Nacy. So none of them speak any English, but they have been such sweet ladies to work with, and I'm super thankful to get to work with them. And like I said, I still go out with our pastor on home visits because that's really where my heart is at. So anytime we have our general medicine teams who set up day clinics, I go out once or twice a week with those teams and go on home visits with the pastor. And when we don't have teams, I go on home visits with the pastor. So we've made a lot of relationships with people in the area. We actually just went to, a few weeks ago, we went to a guy who was in the major leagues. His name is Ezekiel Duran. I don't know. He was in, he plays for the Texas Rangers and just won the World Series. So he came back, and the day after he came back to San Juan, the pastor and I went to his house and prayed for him and shared the gospel. And so he's kind of getting plugged into Pastor and Noel's church, which has been really cool to see. So I still go on home visits, just not as frequently as I did before I took over the guest house. So that's a little bit about that. Okay. All right, so let me make sure, yeah. So one thing that is just always on my heart for anybody who partners with me in what I do are these verses that you see up here, which I'll kind of go through each one. And so I talk to people about this who partner with me financially or prayerfully. And then I also talk to some of our team members that come on the short-term mission teams about this. And this is just kind of my prayer for anybody who is a friend and believer and is just partnering with me in the work that I do. So in Matthew 28:19 through 20, the Great Commission, we know that we're all called to one mission. So I know I can probably quote it, but I don't want to mess it up since I'm in front of a bunch of people, so I'll look it up. All right, let's see. Okay, here we go. All right, so it says, "Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe everything that I've commanded you, and remember that I'm with you always to the end of the age." So we know that as believers, we're all called to one mission, and that's to go and spread the word of God and the love of God to the ends of the earth. And we each have different talents and abilities that allow us to carry out this mission. So the way that I'm carrying it out may look different from the way somebody else in this room is carrying it out. We have teachers and dentists and I'm not even sure what all we have in this room, but we have lots of different people with lots of different skill sets. And wherever you're planted, I just want to encourage you guys to be faithful to the Lord in whatever you're doing and make disciples in whatever you're doing. But even though we're doing it a little bit differently, all for one purpose, we all are partners in the gospel of Jesus Christ if you're a believer. So I'm just super thankful for the partnership that I have with you guys, because I know that a lot of you have been praying for me. And when I tell you I have seen so many of the fruits of your prayers, it has honestly been incredible. Because being in a different place, although you speak the language and you are very familiar with the culture, it's still very hard to be away from family. And you guys, I think most of you know what's going on with my grandpa, so it's been very hard to not be here. But the Lord has been working and bringing me comfort in a lot of ways that I didn't really anticipate. So it's really been beautiful to just be able to rely on the Lord in this season, even though it has been difficult. And I can talk a little bit more about spiritual warfare and all of that stuff that I've experienced since being there. But I just want to say thank you guys for partnering with me, whether it's prayerfully, whether it's through gifts and sponsorships. That it's been truly humbling and incredible just to know you guys and be loved by you guys. So I'm going to read Philippians 1, verses 3 through 7. Let's see if I can find it. So this is just kind of a prayer that I walk through for thankfulness and the people who are walking alongside me in the ministry of Jesus Christ. So it says, "I give thanks to my God for every remembrance of you, always praying with joy for all of you in my every prayer, because of your partnership in the gospel from the first day until now. I'm sure of this, that he who started a good work in you will carry it out to completion until the day of Jesus Christ. Indeed, it is right for me to think this way about all of you, because I have you in my heart, and you are all partners with me in grace." And so that's just kind of a prayer that I pray for you guys and all my friends and family that are believers and partnering with me in some way. And then I also just have another prayer that I love to pray for friends and family, and that is in Ephesians. Let's see if I have it marked here. Yes, I do. All right. Ephesians 3:14 through 19, it says, "For this reason I kneel before the Father, from whom every family in heaven and on earth is named. I pray that he may grant you, according to the riches of his glory, to be strengthened with power in your inner being through his Spirit, and that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith. And I pray that you, being rooted and firmly established in love, may be able to comprehend with all the saints what is the length and width, height and depth of God's love, and to know Christ's love that surpasses knowledge, so that you may be filled with all the fullness of God." And so that's just the wisdom and the knowledge of the presence of the Lord is what I just pray for everybody who is a believer, because that strengthens us in our calling to spread the gospel and spread the word of God. And so I also have a prayer in James 1, verses 22 through 25, just to be bold and strengthened in your doing of your calling. So I promise that's going to be the last one I read. All right, it says, "But be doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. Because if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like someone looking at his own face in a mirror. For he looks at himself, goes away, and immediately forgets what kind of person he was. But the one who looks intently into the perfect law of freedom and perseveres in it, and is not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the works, this person will be blessed in what he does." So just encouraging you to be a doer of the word, no matter where it is that you're planted. So just know that I am in prayer for you guys, as you guys are in prayer for me throughout this time. And I guess I can talk a little bit about the spiritual warfare that I've seen, and I've kind of already alluded to it a little bit with like the poverty and everything. But my heart, honestly, every time I go out with the teams, my heart just breaks a little bit more because it's so hard to see the way that these people live and knowing all the resources and everything that we have here, especially with like homelessness. Like you have the soup kitchens and everything. You have people that you can go to here. Even if you don't know people, you can walk into the police station and say, hey, I you know I'm going through this. I need some resources. You can walk into a school or wherever, and people are going to give you resources. Whereas there, they have no resources. They have very little access to education, and so it's heartbreaking to see and experience these things. And so, also, one of the biggest things that I have seen that's been the hardest for me is community. And I know that I've only been there for like 3.5 months, so I'm still fairly new and still kind of getting my bearings. But here I have all my people, and I can say, hey, I need this or I need that, or will you pray for me, or whatever, and just people to walk through life with and be encouraged by. Whereas there, it's been very hard to really connect with people. And I am doing better. Like I've started going to some young adult stuff at a couple of the churches. I actually do go to a Mennonite church there. And so that's been really good too. So I've met a lot of people, but still haven't really made like deep connections. So that's something that I ask that you guys would also pray for, is to like have kind of my people to walk through life with and just process the things that I'm seeing, because it's very weighty, some of the things that I see and experience, but it's also beautiful in a lot of ways. So that's kind of my biggest prayer request for you guys, and that's one way that you can really support me, is just lifting me up in prayer. Feel free to reach out anytime. I love hearing from people back home and talking to people, so feel free to just like message me on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, and just say, hey, like, this is what's going on in my life. Like, I love to see that and hear that. And another part I talked about, if you were here in the 8 o'clock service, is partnering with me financially. So for the work that I do over there, I don't get a salary. Solid Rock doesn't pay me anything except for the donations that come through them. It gets back to me. But if I don't have people who are sponsoring me, I have zero income coming in. So thankfully, I've had lots of one-time donations and a few recurring donations. And so for me, it takes, my monthly budget is $1,750. And if you really think about that and break that down, that's roughly around like a mortgage or an apartment rent and things like that. So I'm living everything that I absolutely need under that $1,750 a month. So one thing for me that I just would really love to ask you guys is, I would love for you guys to be part of this and experience this with me through that, by being able to continue to do this. So I would love for, my prayer is that at least 30 people today sign up to sponsor me monthly, at least $25. If I get all 30 people to sponsor me for at least $25 a month, then I will be about 2/3 of the way funded. So I have been living on very, very little, and I'm okay with that. But to continue to be able to do this, obviously, we know that we have expenses and cost of living and things like that. So I would just encourage you all to just prayerfully consider that, if you don't want to make the decision to create an account. So to do that, you can hit sign in or sign up. Maybe. Uh-oh, is the Wi-Fi not reaching in here? Let's see. It's spinning. No, you're good. So anyway, you will go in and you'll create an account. And once you've created an account, you'll sign in. And then if he can't get this, it's fine. I'll just kind of walk you through it. You'll click or you'll hover over the donate button, and then you'll click all ways to donate. Is it going to let you? No. Okay, so it is a little tricky. I might make a video of how to do it and then post it. But any donations that are made online through Solid Rock are tax deductible. So that's a good benefit of giving. So it's okay if you can't get it. I can go hang out in the lobby if anybody wants to see how to do it. Sometimes technology is great, sometimes it's not. That's okay. So I guess we'll just go to any questions that you have for me, and then afterwards, I know my Wi-Fi reaches when I'm out there, so I can show you on my computer out there if you are interested in donating online. But does anybody have any questions for me? So in the guest house, I manage all the finances. I plan our meals. I serve our meals. I do a lot of the cleaning. I help prep the meals, and I do all of the desserts. And so and I just do a lot of little tiny things. It depends. Sometimes we have groups of about 10. We're about to have a group of 40 people, so it can range. Our guest house can hold, I think, 45 people. But I haven't had a group that size yet, so, yep. Yes, yeah, it's like a little compound, little motel kind of thing. It's always a week, so they'll come in on a Saturday and leave on the Friday. Mm-hmm. Yep. No, it depends. So some of our college teams will only have 10 or 15 people. Some that come with medical organizations, we have doctors and stuff, they'll come and it'll be almost full, but just about. We host about 40 teams a year, so it's almost every week. Yep. Yeah. Yes. No, San Juan is also a city. Yeah. So the province of San Juan is over towards Haiti. So it's I'm about an hour from the Haitian border, and then I live in the capital city of that province called San Juan de la Maguana, which comes from. So San Juan is Saint John. It's named after Saint John the Baptist. And if you've been to a Spanish-speaking country, you know that every city and town has a quote-unquote patron saint because they're all majority Catholic. So Saint John the Baptist is the patron saint of the province that I live in, and then Maguana is the tribe, the indigenous tribe that was there before they were conquested. So yeah. Oh, honestly, I feel safer there than I do here. Yeah. There's I hate going to Walmart here by myself. Walmart is terrible, but I go over there and I go out wherever. I don't I go places by myself there now that I drive. So their culture is a lot different though. If something happens, say I get in a car accident or something happens and I'm yelling help, mainly I'll have 15, 20 people there because they're nosy first, but then they will help me. But so they're just a more hospitable, community centered kind of culture. So that's really cool, and they're all very kind people. I can walk up to somebody's house and be like, hey, do you know this? Or can you help me with this? And they'll be like, oh, yeah, absolutely. Or if they can't, then they'll get me to somebody who can. So it's kind of like a lot of the things that I talk about, especially with like older people, they're like, oh, so like what the South used to be like? And I'm like, yeah, basically. Any other questions? In the whole country, any public school, they're like different schools are always on strike for different reasons. So, but that's just in the public school system, not in the private school system. Mm-hmm. I haven't done like a whole lot of research on the public school system there. I know that whenever you like go to college, you have to like pass all of your tests and everything. Like, we have lateral entry here. I don't think that that's a thing there. So they have to pass like all their licensure stuff before they can start working. And the government actually tells you where you're going to work. Like, you don't apply to a school. Your name like goes into this like database, and they tell you, okay, you're going to move here and work here, and you don't really have much option of what school you work at. I went to Western Carolina University, so I have a bachelor's in Spanish. I was a Spanish teacher for 3 years at St. Stephen's High School. Just quit that this past spring, and then moved to the Dominican in September. So yeah. Anybody else? Did we get that working? Nope. All right, that's fine. Well, I will be out there if you guys are interested in sponsoring me for the time that I am there. I have committed to a year and a half since I got there in September, so that will be March 2025. And I do have the chance to, at the end of that time period, commit to another year. So it'll be like on a yearly basis after that. So at the end of each of those years, if I continue to stay, I'll just renew my commitment and things like that. But if you guys are interested in sponsoring me, I'll be out there to answer any questions and just hang out and talk to you guys for a little bit. But thank you guys so much for letting me come and talk to you guys and update you on what it is that I'm doing. And thank you for letting me be here. Yes, absolutely.
places that we can't get to, and preachers can get to places we can't get. Somebody's got to manage a place to stay. Whoever thought of that? Get that right, nothing else gets right. And so to support Katelyn and her work is really to support the whole project, which, I don't know, I think it's kind of cool. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. And I hope,
Thank you.
I hope that you get a lot of attention here in just a minute as to how to get onto your website.
Yes, thank you so much.